Coming up on episode 403 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the Toyota Grand Highlander and Kia K5 GT, the all-new 2026 Toyota Rav4, and the updated Lexus RZ 550e F-Sport with fake shifting. We've also got first drives of the Hyundai Ioniq 9 and Cadillac Vistiq. Nissan's got a awesome looking little new Micra EV, but can't get it in America. Republicans in Congress are trying to kill California's ability to set EV rules. Honda is slowing down some of its EV plans. Tesla owners are putting in ripcords so they can escape if the car loses power. And Chevrolet has launched the new Trail Boss edition of the Silverado EV. We also have a conversation with Cooper Ericksen, the head of product planning with Toyota North America. All that and more coming up next. This is episode 403 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Salmon from Telemetry.
And I'm Nicole Wakeland from Top Speed.
And Robbie's on mute. Or his mic's not working or something.
Oh, it's
I can't hear.
Oh,
now I can hear
you. Your lips were moving, but no sound was coming out.
Now we can hear you. I don't know what happened for a second.
Okay.
Here we go. You're back.
There we go.
Let's try it again. And you are?
I'm Roberto Baldo from SAE International. Is that still?
Yeah, that works.
It's like we can see your mouth moving. I'm like, what happened? Where does voice go?
Not sure what went wrong there, but
that's weird.
All right, Nicole, how would you
sir.
like to start off our big Toyota week?
A Toyota Palooza, and you know what I happen to have in the driveway? A Toyota. It's like they're like, wait, let's just give her Toyota in every conceivable aspect of her life this week. So I have the 25 Toyota Grand Highlander Hybrid Max Platinum. So they've got three engines in this. There's a Hybrid Max, there's the gas engine, and there's just standard hybrid. And the Hybrid Max is the one I would get, honestly. It's the fanciest of the lot, and it gets the best fuel economy of the lot. It also is the most powerful. Like it has the most, it's very responsive. So you're getting like the hybrid, the perks of having a hybrid powertrain, but the oomph of a gas engine. So I like the Hybrid Max. It's actually a 2.4 liter turbo 4 with two electric motors. You get 362 horsepower, 400 pound-feet of torque, and a 6-speed automatic. There's also standard all-wheel drive. I was driving the Platinum, which is the most fancy pants of the Grand Highlanders that you can get.
It's the grandest of the grand.
It's the grandest of the grand. The fanciest of the fancy. Yes, the fanciest of the pants. And the price on this one, now I'm pulling because I don't have a Monroney, so I'm just going with what it says online. It was $58,775. That seems right. Is that right? That seems low to me. Did I grab the right place? I'm going to double check that.
That sounds about right.
Is it sound about right? Okay, all of a sudden I looked at it, I'm like, I have that written down, but that seems low. $58,775. Destination, take your guesses, gentlemen.
Oh, $1,200.
I'm going to go $1,300.
Sam wins $1,450.
Oh,
I knew
okay.
I knew I was low. As soon as I said it, I knew I was going too low.
Yeah, sure. Make your excuses, Robbie. You still lose.
Damn it, Robbie. Drop your game.
There you go. You got to try harder. So 3 rows of seating. There is seating in this. They're seating for 7 because it has second row captain's chairs, which unless you really need the extra space, like I go for the captain chairs every time in a 3-row SUV because they're just way more comfortable. Your kids aren't so much going to care, but your adult friends will care. And as soon as the kids get a little bit older, it's so much nicer for them. You can also walk between them to get to the back, which is nice. And when your kids are little and you're still in that age of, don't get on my side, stay on your side, don't touch me. 1/8 of your pinky finger is over the middle line of the car. Get away from me. Having a captain's chair eliminates that because it's air. You can't fight over that. I mean, you could, but it takes a little more effort.
It's been done.
So
you can ask a lot of nations about.
Exactly. So standard is a 12.3-inch touchscreen, and there's a 12.3-inch digital cluster on the Platinum. You get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You get a bazillion charging ports. There's 2 USB-C in the front. There's 2 USB-C in the second, and there's 2 in the third row. So everybody can happily stay charged. You don't have to be shuffling around to charge your devices. And there's also a wireless charging pad up front. So it's got great features. I mean, it has good cargo room. You've got a total of 97.5 cubic feet if you don't have people. That's a lot of room. But even if you do have a full crew of people, there's still 20.6 cubic feet behind the third row. So that's a good amount of cargo space if you're going on an adventure and you need to have stuff for everyone. It's going to be a little tight if you've got big bags, but plan accordingly. If you're just going to the airport, somebody sits with a bag between their feet halfway to the airport, you'll make it. Behind the second row, 57.9. So it checks all the boxes for what you want a family SUV to be. It has features, it has the charging, it has good infotainment, it's an attractive and comfortable car, it's got a powerful engine that gets good fuel economy, and it is nice to drive. I mean, that this is a big vehicle. You're not going to think you're in a sports car, but it is nice to drive. It is responsive. It doesn't feel heavy despite being a pretty big thing. And I enjoyed driving, and I drove it back and forth to the airport a couple of times, and it was good. I handled the whole crazy pothole mess of every road in Massachusetts and New Hampshire without problem. And I took it on a little spin down some of the side roads around me to see how it handled in more like country driving. And it does great. And I felt like it was parking it. So that's always the thing. Like when you go to park these bigger vehicles, especially where we're in a different car every week. So you get used to your own car very quickly. But when you go from something the size of Sam's Miata to the size of a Toyota Grand Highlander, your spatial awareness gets thrown a little bit. And I still found this pretty easy to park, which is saying something, because if you come off of a small car and you go to a big car, it can be a little bit of a challenge. So overall, I like this. I mean, didn't we drive this in Hawaii together, Sam?
We did. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I liked it then. I thought it was a good vehicle when I drove it then. It's still a good vehicle. I mean, it was introduced for last year. It's basically a carryover this year. I mean, I think they changed some colors, just continued.
Yeah, the usual model year stuff.
Right. So there's nothing significant for this model year. It's basically the same car it was last year. So if you find a 24 and you want to get a deal, go for it, because unless you care about the colors that are gone, it's going to be the same vehicle. So overall, I like it. And I don't think the price, that's why I looked and went, did I write down the wrong price? Because, when you think about.
You had the platinum, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I get that right? I thought
58,775.
Yeah, which
price.
I think is clearly, I think it's a good price. I'm like, wait a minute, that seems too low. Did I grab the wrong one? So 58,775 for a 3-row SUV that's the top trim in the gray, that has standard all-wheel drive, that has a hybrid engine, that is nice, has features. That's not a bad price. That's affordable. I mean, you can go cheaper, but like when you have a family, it's hard to find 3-row SUVs that you can keep in your budget. This one can, and it's a Toyota. So I say with Toyotas, they don't give up on you, you give up on them. You just decide you're done with it and you kick it to the curb. It's not that the Toyota gave up on you. It's like, I still have life. You're like, but I don't need you. Bing. So they just kind of go forever. So you're going to have it. They're reliable vehicles. And so overall, I liked the oldie Grand Highlander Hybrid Max Platinum.
I like the idea that every person Nicole's ever broken up with was, I don't like you. Ding.
Yeah, that's it. I don't like you. Bing, you're out. It's like, exactly how it worked. And you guys can't see the visual. I'm like flicking it out of the way. Bing.
Ding. I don't like you anymore. Bing.
I'm done with you.
Started. This is our first date. Get out.
Done with you. Bing.
And the key to the Grand Highlander over the non-Grand Highlander, or less grand or ungrand or something, the regular Highlander, is that third row. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, the standard Highlander has a third row.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not really useful for adults. It's more for kids.
I mean, you could. The zombies are coming. You need to leave. Okay.
Yeah, but they're not going to be happy about it.
No,
I mean, I have sat in the third row of a Grand Highlander, or of a regular Highlander,
and you survived to tell the tale.
Yeah.
After 20 miles, they're like, you know what? Just let the zombies eat me.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like, just kick me out now. I'll just give myself up. No, it's the I mean, you can. There's lots of vehicles that say they have a 3-row that were really, truly 2 rows at heart, and they just kind of tuck a third row in there, almost as an afterthought, just so that if you need it, it's there. If you have a short trip, you're just have a bunch of people and you're all going out, you have another family you're driving with, and you want to take their kids with you out on a day's adventure or something. it's fine. But as soon as those kids get a little bit older, and as soon as you start to try to think about putting adults or even teenagers in the back seat to something like that, they're not going to like it. They'll get back there, but they will complain loudly as they get older. And adults are going to be polite, but in their head, they're going to think next time I'm driving, because you're not going to want to ride in the back of something like that. The Grand Highlander, they'd totally be like, okay, you're driving forever now because this is comfy and I'm cool with this.
Yeah, real adults can, full size adults can fit in the third row of the Grand Highlander.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I like it. I like the Grand Highlander. I liked it before and still like it.
Cool. All right. Well, since Robbie didn't drive anything this week, I had in between trips, I spent some days with the 2025 Kia K5 GT. And I am still a fan of cars. I still prefer cars over crossovers and utility vehicles. When it comes to spending my money, I buy cars. I don't buy crossovers. I don't buy utility vehicles. Now, I would prefer to be able to have the option to buy the K5 wagon or estate or touring or whatever it is they call it in overseas markets, because I like having the longer roof for that extra utility, and I actually like the way wagons look, especially modern wagons. But we can't have nice things here in America, so we only have the sedan, which is actually still a very nice thing. The K5 is the replacement for the vehicle that was formerly badged as the Optima. Kia's been making their branding more consistent globally, where they previously had different nameplates for the same vehicle in different markets. They've been making those more consistent over the last several years. So hence we have the K5 in place of the Optima, the K4 replacing the Forte, and the Carnival replaced what was previously known as the Sedona. So more consistent branding, which is fine. I don't like alphanumeric names, but whatever. The K5 GT that I had was finished in the steel matte silver finish, I think is what they call it. Let me see that. Steel matte gray paint. So it's a matte finish, which looks really sharp on this car. You probably don't want to take it through car washes, but other than that, it does look really good.
Is that every matte finish, Sam? I've always wondered that. Is it just like a standard? I know you're not supposed to, but is it just because they're like every single one you should never take through the car wash?
I don't know. I would probably you should probably check your owner's manual.
Okay.
In the vehicle. The vehicles still have those. I know nobody actually reads them, but it's probably worthwhile taking a look and see what kind of guidance they give you. I think in most cases it's probably not recommended, but to be honest, I'm not sure because I didn't actually look at the owner's manual for the K5.
What? I read the owner's manual every time, front to back. I get a car.
I mean, what a slacker you are! You did not read it cover to cover with a nice cup of coffee in the morning. No,
I prefer to try and emulate what average consumers are going to do, and see if I can figure out how these things work without having to resort to that, because that is frankly what most people do. Most people don't look at the owner's manual, but when it comes to something like how you should treat your matte finish, I would probably take a look and see what the manufacturer recommends, so that you don't want to void any warranties if you can avoid it. If you still if you have a matte finish, you take it through a car wash and then it gets damaged, then the manufacturer is not going to be liable for that if they told you not to do that. So the one that I had, the test car I had, in addition to the paint, the only other options were $100 cargo mat, $185 carpeted floor mats, and the $4,400 GT1 package, which gets you 19-inch gloss black alloy wheels, which I could probably take a pass on those. The smartphone digital key, which requires the Kia Connect package, again, could probably take a pass on that. The Bose premium audio with active sound design, what? It's a car. It's never going to have the ideal sound environment. Memory driver's seat and outside mirrors. It's nice to have. Ventilated seats, definitely a nice to have. Heated steering wheel. Power folding mirrors, parking collision avoidance assist in reverse, and the surround view monitor in the instrument cluster. All very nice to haves, but it would be nice to be able to pick and choose some of those without having to get the whole package. Grand total on this one, $39,625. Guesses on the freight?
$1,295.
$1,350.
Nicole's got it. It was $1,155.
Woohoo!
The
That's
the
close.
GT also includes the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder turbo, 290 horsepower, 311 foot-pounds of torque. It's an 8-speed automatic. Very nice combination. It's a surprisingly brisk machine to drive. It also handles quite well. The ride comfort is very good. Let's see what else we got in here. It's got all the usual stuff. It's got the Kia Connect hardware, and you get 3 years of connectivity included when you buy the car. This is something I recently had an email from somebody about. They're trying to find a car that doesn't have connectivity. They want something that's unconnected, and this is actually a real problem. There are only a handful of cars new cars still available for sale in the U.S. that do not have built-in connectivity. The Hyundai Venue is one. I think the Kia, what is the base crossover that they sell?
Kia?
Yeah, not.
It's not the Soul. That's all I can think of. The Kia.
Oh yeah, well yeah, the Soul.
Soul?
And
Seltos?
the Soul does not have connectivity as standard. I think it's on certain trims, and the Seltos, same thing on the base trims. It does not have it, but it's on upper trim levels. It does have it. Basically, it's going to be really hard to find something other than an entry level model that doesn't have connectivity. If you don't want to be connected, the best thing to do is just have it turned off, which you can do, and just say you don't want it. Decline the terms of service. You can have it disabled. So that is really your best option if you don't want to be connected. Other than that, everything else about this car I really, really like. I like the way it looks. I thought the refresh they did last year with the new lights, the sort of Z pattern signature lights that they have on there, looks pretty cool. And the overall shape of the car, I really like it. I like driving the K5. It's good stuff, and if you're looking for something that isn't a crossover or SUV, but has good style and decent utility, you should definitely be considering this. And the K5, this one was almost $40,000, but you can get the K5 starting at $27,000, which is actually a pretty good value. So it's definitely something worth considering if you want a midsize sedan. And if the K4 is a little bit too small for your needs, if you have adult children that you want to carry in the back seat, or other adults that you want to carry in the back seat from time to time, the K5 is a bit roomier than the K4 in the back, so it's a great option, great alternative.
Very cool.
Yeah. Oh, and it's EPA rated at 27 miles per gallon combined, 23 city, 33 highway. I didn't have a chance to do my my usual drive loop with it, but it's fairly, and this is for the high performance model, so almost 300 horsepower with this one. If you get the base models with the naturally aspirated 2.5 liter, it's significantly better than that.
Very
So
cool.
that's the K5.
That's the K5. All right.
All right.
Solid.
So, Nicole, you and I spent a few days, sadly, in Texas this week. Not sadly that we were there at the same time, but sadly that we were in Texas at all.
Did you guys? Okay,
and
so I was invited and I said no because I have stuff. Was there barbecue at least?
No.
no barbecue.
Oh
So they
God,
used to at the track,
I-
Robbie. This is a bone of contention. They used to have a guy on your day that you were at the track come out. I forgot the name of the company, but it was like, they bring out their little trailer on the back of it. Well, little
yeah,
huge
the
trailer, and
cooker
they have
and the
this
big
big
smoker.
giant smoker, and they have brisket, and they have these things called
Oh,
Texas Twinkies, which are big peppers stuffed with cream cheese and brisket and wrapped in bacon. They didn't have that. They had a guy with a grill and burgers and chicken, which I'm sure was fine.
oh,
And
I
the
didn't have.
power went out while we were eating lunch.
Mhm.
oh,
So I was very disappointed. So I did one night because I stayed in because I had work to do. I ordered a brisket flatbread from the hotel, so I would have some. And actually, it was not bad. Just gonna say that was my only
oh.
access to barbecue.
Okay,
Uh,
well, I was just busy. That was the reason I didn't go.
yeah.
But also now I'm happy I didn't go because there was no barbecue.
There was no barbecue. Come to
I-
my house. My husband's making brisket and ribs right now. That's later today.
I'll be there right after we finish recording. I was actually kind of disappointed because Toyota scheduled this right on top of the Mama Spring Rally. Mama's the Midwest Automotive Media Association. They have a big driving event every spring at Road America, and I was bummed, that I kind of needed to go to this one, and I couldn't go to Road America until I saw the weather that they got at Road America, which was just miserable. It
They
was
looked
cold
cold
rainy.
and wet. I think everyone had a good time, but it looked
Yeah,
not like the best conditions.
yeah, I miss seeing the people there, but oh boy,
It would have been worse if they were like eating ribs, like in the pictures.
Right then, it
Yeah.
would have been really hurtful.
Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Anyway, we were in Plano where it was hot and muggy,
Ugh.
especially at least on the first couple of days.
Yeah.
Then it was just hot, not quite as muggy in the
Yeah.
last days.
You got rid of the muggy and just got
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah, I think like Monday afternoon when I got there, it was like 84 degrees and 78% humidity. So
Yeah.
it was
No.
kind
It was really rough.
gross feeling. Anyway, Toyota, Toyota doesn't really do big events at auto shows anymore, but they do this headquarters confidential program most years. And this year, the star of the show was the global reveal of the 2026 Rav4.
Which was the thing. Mhm.
Yeah. So before we talk about the Rav4, Nicole, what did you think of Cosm, this venue that they did it at?
So Cosm was this funky venue. I guess they do sports viewing, not sporting events, but they view like it's big. They have this giant screen. It made me think of the screen they used to have at the
Sphere.
Museum of Science. No, it made me think
Oh,
of
a
this thing.
planetarium.
Yeah, not a planetarium. They have. I just forgot what it's called.
IMAX?
It's like it's not IMAX. Dang it! I'm gonna have to look it up.
It's kind of a mix of all of those. It's a little bit because it's kind of dome shaped and it goes back over your head, so it is kind of planetarium like. But
Wait, what's it called? Oh, it's the. I never know how to say this, but it's the MUGAR Omni Theater, and it could be Mugar, but I like to call it the Mugger Omni Theater that they have at the Boston Museum of Science, and it has like exactly set up like this place where you have this sort
Robbie
of
looks like
huge.
a deer caught in the headlights.
I
right
know.
now.
You have
He's
like
staring straight at his camera.
You have a huge half screen, like over your head just a little bit, all the way down to the floor, and it's curved. It's so big, or like what you have in Soarin' at Disney World, huge screen. I guess they do a lot of sporting events, so like when there's a big game or whatever, they'll have it there. But instead, they had the whole place rented out for Toyota, and we had all 3 floors of it to ourselves, and there were cars under sheets on one side of it. But they did their giant presentation on this huge screen, which was kind of, I guess it's funky and fun, but it was like, what are we doing here? It was a little different. It was kind of neat though.
It's kind of the place is kind of a mix of sports bar, Las Vegas Sphere, and an IMAX theater all mashed together into one.
Yeah. Yeah. And they did have really cool. So somebody had gotten a drink. I think he got an old fashioned or something. He had the giant ice cube in the bottom of the ice cube. It actually said COSM, COSM. So they had their own fancy ice cube things that we were all like, look at the ice cubes. Oh, also the car.
We're so
look at the
weirdly
ice cubes.
impressed by we're so impressed by the weirdest things. They're like, hey, look at this new Ferrari. We're like, all right, hey, look at this ice cube. We're like, oh, you see this?
Right.
This is when you've been
exactly.
You've been doing the job.
You get a little jaded
doing
sometimes
the job
by the
for
cars.
such a long time. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, this makes sense. This is a natural evolution. Oh my God, an ice cube.
Yeah, kind of. But it was so yes, but it was it was a neat venue. It was, I mean, there were literally escalators to take us up and down, and there were stairs, and so it was a lot of it was cool. It was definitely different. It was definitely different. So
So what did you think of the Rav4?
I thought the Rav4 was good. So now it's hybrid only. There is no gas engine. You get either plug-in hybrid or go home. Like all you get is hybrid. So I thought it was good. I mean, I like what they did with it. They changed it up. I don't think it's some great move forward. I mean, the styling changes a little bit. It looks a little bit more modern. I think the idea that they're going straight to just a hybrid powertrain only is kind of neat because it's showing that you're, where they're going with this. It's not an EV. Like you get a hybrid, which is a huge part of the plan at Toyota. In fact, we have an interview later on that talks about it. So I thought it was good. I think people are going to like it. Here's the thing though. I feel like short of them completely foobarring it, which I don't think they did, this is like, it sells almost 1 million units worldwide. I think the number they gave was like
970 something.
Yeah.
Globally.
Right,
475,000 in the U.S.
Like
right, yeah. So the bulk of it
in America that's not the Silverado or the F-150, and both of those get fleet sales. Like you don't see a lot of Rav4s in fleet sales.
No one's buying a Rav4 for their fleet. Yeah.
Well, and actually, if you separate F-150 from Super Duty,
it's all
Ford,
the
Ford and GM
you're right.
and Ram, they just lump all of their full-size trucks together, so they count all the F series. But if you actually take out F-150 from the rest, Rav4 is actually the single best-selling individual nameplate in the U.S. now.
Yeah. It's a good car. It's well made. It's all right.
Deal.
It's like not too big. It's just big enough. It's bigger than people probably need, but it's the right size everyone wants. How's that?
Yep.
And one thing that really surprised me when I was going through all the materials, it's actually exactly the same size as the current Rav4. It has not gotten bigger.
Kudos to
yeah.
Well, they can't grow because Toyota has every 3 inches there's a different every 3-inch increment there's a different crossover in their lineup now. So you can't grow because you bump up against the next thing, and you can't get smaller because you bump up the next thing. So you're like, okay, we got it set. Don't move.
Yeah. Yep.
So standard hybrid. With a little more power than before. It's now 221 horsepower, I think, for the hybrid. And then optional plug-in hybrid, which is going to be available more widely than the current gen plug-in hybrid, which has been fairly limited availability. And the new plug-in hybrid is supposed to get 50 miles on a charge. They haven't said how big the battery is, but it'll probably be somewhere around 21, 22 kilowatt hours compared to 18 for the current one. What do you think of the design?
I think it looks good. I like it. Some people did not like how sort of flat, I guess, the front of it kind of like sort of cuts off a little bit. It's a very strong, straight line sort of in the front. Some people did not like that.
But you know what else has a fairly flat front? The current Rav4.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's not this huge difference from what it used to be. Do you know what it's different, yes, but at the same time, you know what I mean?
It's still very much a Rav.
I guess you three of us look at it and go, yep, I can see a difference. I feel like the average human's not going to see a difference. It's not like one of those like it's changed so much that you're going to be shocked and say, holy bejesus, that Rav4 looks entirely different. It still looks like a Rav4, which, given how much it sells, you don't want to screw this up. You have to still have it appeal to the same market. So I think they they were safe, but they did move things forward just a skosh.
Just a skosh.
Just a skosh.
Yeah, now it's got, a similar style of headlights to what you get on the Prius and the Camry and the Crown Signia, what Toyota calls their hammer headlights.
Mm-hmm.
Although, the version on the Rav is on the cars, it's a little more rounded. This one is a little more angular version of it, but same basic concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they also added a new trim called GR Sport, which is from done by the engineers at GR. It's plug-in hybrid only, with supposedly better handling, and a little sportier look to it. We'll see how good it is.
It looks cute, like the little GR Sport, that because we obviously didn't drive these, but the cosmetic details, it does look a little bit sportier. It looks good. It feels GR-ish. So on that end, I'd say, yeah, they lived up to it. We'll have to see how it actually drives and how much that translated. Because, it's not like it's a GR Corolla. It's a RAV4. It's a little SUV. So we'll have to see what they actually deliver,
Yeah. And then there's the new Woodland, which is, that's the more off-roady version. That's the equivalent of, the Nissan Rock Creek or.
And is it bigger though? Did they change the dimensions, or is that just badging?
It's the same.
Okay.
But the Woodland is the one that kind of has the flatter looking face on it. So it's kind of got this bar in the middle of the grill. So it looks a little flatter than the other ones. Whereas they've kind of got the RAV4s in 3 different groupings now, the various trim levels. So there's 7 trim levels across 3 groupings. You got Sport, which includes the XSE and the GR Sport and another, I think maybe the SE.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Woodland, which is the, what was the name? I forget the word they used for it, but it's kind of the rugged version. And then the core, adventure, yeah. And then you got the core trims, which are the base model and the limited, and so each one's kind of got its own unique face to it. That kind of flat nose look is on the Woodland. The GR Sport has more open, looks a little more like what you find on the front end of a GR Corolla, and then the core models get this kind of hexagon mesh style grill, similar to what you find on the Crown Signia and the Camry, and those are the more mainstream trims.
I like that. Someone was commenting, and I think they're so right. There was a time when all the special things were always sporty. It was always a sporty, like super sporty, right? You give some almost maybe kind of sort of track worthy trim of a vehicle because you had lots of sedans, and now everything's a crossover, everything's an SUV, everything is big. And it's like, well, now instead of doing a sporty version, although they have the GR, but like a true sporty version is like, let's give you an off-road version. Everything needs to be ready to go off-road. Everyone needs an off-road version of everything.
Yeah. Even though they're never actually going to take them off-road.
No. Like the most off-roading they do, I always say, is going to, it's the county fair. Let's go park on the grass in that parking lot.
Boom, off-road.
Exactly.
That's it.
I need the off-road midnight version.
Off-road, technically. Off-road midnight edition.
One thing that Toyota is starting to do on a bunch of their vehicles now is putting dual wireless charging pads. So both front seat occupants can charge their phones wirelessly at the same time. And the new Rav has a 14-inch touchscreen with a new version of the Toyota multimedia system that is running on their new software platform that they call Arene, which they haven't shared a whole lot of detail about yet. I'm pestering some folks at Toyota to learn a little more about that. But one key thing that we did see in the presentation and in the photos that they released with Arene, because like you said, we haven't been able to drive it, or with the new version of the infotainment, is it will actually display 3 different panes in there with different information. Because one of the complaints I think that they've had with the current generation system that they launched a few years back, which is quite good, but you can only see one thing on the screen at a time. So you can see navigation, or you can see your your media player or settings, you can't have multiple things on screen at the same time. And now there's a way to show that multiple things simultaneously.
Oh,
yeah.
Did anyone make a Dexy's Midnight Runners joke while you guys were there?
No.
Not quite sure I grabbed
Come
the context.
Come on, Irene.
Oh.
Come on. Man, you just lobbed that up for me too.
Yeah. Okay. No, I did not hear any Dexy's jokes this week.
See, you should have come.
Yeah, but there wasn't barbecue, so
yeah.
It's not worth it.
I'm just saying.
No barbecue, no jokes.
No barbecue, no Robbie. That's the rule now.
Yeah. Especially if you're in Texas. If you're in Texas, you got to service some barbecue. Anywhere else you can service, sushi and shrimp, but Texas, you got to service barbecue. All right.
It is the law.
And then, we also saw, other stuff that we talked about last week, like the new ES and the CHR. And they also showed off the 2026 Lexus RZ 550e F Sport. So this is a new trim level on the RZ, which is the Lexus version of their BEV crossover, like the BZ. But this time they have apparently mixed in some of the type of stuff that you find on the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. So you got virtual gear shifting and different noise than what you get in the standard RZ. So it's supposed to be a lot more fun to drive.
I always wonder, like the idea of making things have noise and sound like a gas car. I feel like we need to stop. It doesn't have an engine. Get used to less noise. Get used not making the fake noise for things.
I think for just normal day-to-day commuting, yes, I absolutely agree with you. But when you're going out on a back road, or not that anybody's going to take an RZ onto a track,
tracking your RZ,
but yeah. But if you're going out to have some fun with it, having some audible feedback does add to the experience.
I guess.
I mean, to be honest, again, with internal combustion cars with their sounds, those are all tuned. I mean, the fact that you can turn them off.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
It's all.
Or you turn down the volume.
I know, but they actually do. But they do actually make noise. Yeah. Like if I turn on my car and I'm just standing outside, there will be noise if it has a gas engine. If I turn on my EV, it just goes to make sure everyone knows I've turned it on.
But modern combustion vehicles are actually so quiet anyway. I mean, aside from performance cars, most of them are so quiet.
Yeah.
When I'm out walking my dogs in the morning, I usually have like one earbud in and I'm listening to a podcast, and then, leaving the other ear open. And you almost don't hear most modern cars until they're right up behind you.
I suppose
people are creeping up on.
I suppose
in the neighborhood.
That's why he's got the one earbud.
You can turn it off for most of these things. So if you're like, no, turn it off. But for the people who
Okay, can I talk about something that's kind of weird on this? And Sam, I don't know if there's a reason for it. So when you look at the charging port, it's on the passenger side front fender.
Mm-hmm.
And when you open it up, it's like it's a let's call it a square, but then there's a rectangular piece right behind it. Like, do you see how they placed it so it looks like it cuts off maybe, I don't know, an inch before the seam in the front door? So you have this extra little panel, and they felt the need to call it out. Like there's a seam at the top and the bottom.
I see what you're saying.
I find that odd. Do you see what I'm saying?
Just make the whole thing the door?
Like instead of either make the whole thing the door or just make that metal, like flat. Like I don't understand why the little line on the top of the bottom where it's not actually door. It makes it look like it should open like a clamshell.
Yeah, I suspect that in this case, the top part of the fender is a separate piece from the lower fender, and so it's just a filler.
Let's do the other side.
Let me see.
It's odd, isn't it? Kind of odd.
No, it's odd.
Me who thinks it's odd. I think.
No, it is a little odd because you've got a couple of extra seams that arguably should not be there.
Right, like it's not. They're not. Here, wait a minute.
There's not really a functional reason for them to be there.
So if I'm looking at the
if you look at the other side, it's one giant piece for the fender. It's not broken up.
Oh, there is a seam
is there?
though. Maybe maybe there. If you look, there's a lower seam, not an upper seam, but there's like a lower seam. Maybe they did that.
Oh, there is
Do you
a seam
see it?
there.
There's a seam, but like when you look at the driver's side, so there's just one little seam that goes horizontally, sort of where the lower part of it.
There's two pieces, and they decided to put the thing there, and then now they have that weird.
I think that's weird looking.
It seems like it would have made more sense to just expand the door, make the door a little bit longer, so it goes all the way to the edge.
Right. Yeah. So it's just a whole piece, because that extra little piece, like when I first saw that extra little bit of seam, I thought, is there a reason this has that extra little? And you can really see it in the one close up they do, and it's just a little rectangular section that looks like it should do something. Is it a
fancy door, or is it just a regular? You push it and it pops open like a gas door? Because it's a fancy door. Come on, stop that. Give us regular pop.
I think it's just a push.
I think it's just a pop open door.
In that case, there's really no reason for that. At least if they tried.
I found a little bit. It makes it look like, I know it's one extra line or whatever, but it just makes it look like, why do we need all that busy there?
Something I built, and I'm like, I get it. I didn't measure this correctly. I'll just throw another piece of
right. Like crud. I haven't. Yes, like a bad carpenter crud. We'll just stick a piece of trim right there.
They brought Robbie in at the last minute to make the door. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. Did you measure it? I think so. I can't remember.
And this is what happened when Robbie designs a car.
Sorry.
Just, you know.
Apologies, everybody. Apologies to Lexus. Apologies to the people of the world.
This is the kind of thing that Sandy Monroe will have a field day over. Complaining about this, about why is there this extra piece? Because that means that's an extra piece that you've got to manufacture, and then you've got to assemble all of that. That door should just extend back to the back edge of the fender, and line up with the door, with the passenger door.
Maybe that's because the passenger, if you open the passenger door and the charging door at the same time, you can't have it opening that way. You know what I mean? So if the passenger door is open and you open the charging door, it's going to
except it hinges. The hinge is on the forward edge.
So it opens forward. Oh well, I don't know what to tell you then.
Yeah, I mean,
I got nothing.
That's all he's got.
I can't think of a good excuse for why it's like.
Lexus, we demand answers. Email
I don't
us
get it. I looked at it and I don't get it. I don't get
demand
it.
Answers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now,
we'll ask them next time we see them.
Okay, we'll demand an answer. I'm supposed to have an interview with a Lexus guy. I'm going to demand an answer. Like, before we get the interview started, explain this little fiddly bit. The guy's going to be like, what?
Why is there this excess piece of plastic here?
Whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe it's a gold bar.
And the funny thing is, I'm looking at a picture of the BZ right now.
Yeah.
It does not have that.
See?
So now I'm really confused.
But it's got different. It's completely different sheet metal from the RZ.
Still.
And I'm looking at the 2025 RZ, the current RZ, and it's the same way. It has that extra.
Oh, we just never noticed it.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Somehow it's really standing out to me.
Now we can't look away.
I don't know why.
Yeah. Because one thing, they did actually change this for 2026. They actually moved the charge port from the driver's side, because on the since they launched it in 2022, up until the 2025 models, they've had the charge port on the driver's side front fender. They moved it to the passenger side front fender for 2026 as part of the changeover to using the NACS charge port, the SAJ 3400 charge port. Because this way you can nose into a Tesla supercharger stall and still reach the cable, because all the Teslas have their charge ports on the left rear fender, left rear corner, and the superchargers have very short cables on them. They basically only reach to where the charge port is on a Tesla. And if you have anything else that has the charge port, in any other location, so this is diagonally opposite. So instead of backing in like you do with a Tesla, you nose in with the new BZ and the RZ, and it can reach the charge port. But as for that extra little piece, I
just put the charge port behind the L for the Lexus at the very front of the car. Be done with it.
At the very front. We'll just redesign this puppy.
It's actually not a bad idea.
Why are we?
Except maybe they have the radar sensor there.
No, whatever. They can move it.
I'm sure there's an explanation.
I mean, you're not driving with radar on.
No, the explanation is some designer just measured.
It was me. I'm sorry.
We already established that was Robbie's fault.
I should have put it in the front. I really blow it, guys. I'm so sorry.
All right. Anything else you want to say about the RZ or anything else?
I think we covered the RZ and the Rav4.
It's got some specs.
One last thing I want to say. I'm so excited. I'm so excited that the BZ4X is now just the BZ.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and next week we can talk about actually driving it. Did you get a chance to drive it?
I did, which we can't talk about yet, but because it's still embargoed. But I can just say that I'm very happy with this. This is an embargo. I'm glad that they changed it from BZ4X to BZ, and I like how the new dashboard looks when I look inside from the side of the car. Not drive impression. Just I think that the way they
when I look at the dashboard, nice. I appreciate the new design.
I appreciate the new design. Yeah.
Okay. The Nissan, they used to sell a car here called the Micra. They still sell it in other parts of the world. And now the new Micra, the new generation Micra, is it's gone electric. And I don't know about you, but looks an awful lot like a Mini, like what we expect a Mini to look like. What do you think?
It's super cute.
I saw this in Japan.
I love the little circular headlight. Did you see it?
Yeah,
I love how that looks.
Yeah, Japan. The Micra was one of the cars that we saw in Japan back in October 23 when we visited the design center. And it's like, oh, come on, guys, you got to sell this in the U.S. And
they're not gonna.
Yeah, but nobody's gonna buy them.
Yeah,
they're not gonna.
No,
I know. It's a shame because it is really cute.
It gives me Hyundai Inster / Casper vibes.
Yeah, with the round taillights and the round headlights. Yeah, definitely.
Which I loved that car. I absolutely love that thing. I would want it. I love it. It's adorable.
The Inster's a little more upright. A little more boxy looking. But and that's why I say I think this has got a little more mini to it than Inster, but still definitely very cute.
It's really cute. We'll never see it.
Sad.
Unless we move to Europe.
Could happen.
We're all moving to Europe. Tally ho and all that.
All right. So the week before we went to Plano, Nicole, you and I both went to Savannah, Georgia.
Yes.
And we drove the Hyundai Ioniq 9. We
did drive the Hyundai Ioniq 9. So we got a chance to drive the Ioniq 9, which is their new 3-row EV. It's their flagship. So they still have the Palisade that's a gas vehicle, and I don't think the Palisade's going anywhere. So you still have that, but definitely the Ioniq 9 is their flagship vehicle. It keeps that pixel design, the little squares everywhere that Hyundai is utterly in love with right now. And it's all over the front and it's all over the back, and you just see it everywhere. It's the design from the front is really cool. The design from the back, you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it, because they're calling it a boat tail. Is that I think what they were calling it?
Well, the boat tail is because it's a little bit tapered, both on the sides and at the top, so it kind of tapers back a little bit towards the rear end.
And then it tapers back, and then it just kind of whoop, like it gets sort of cut off. So the lights around the edge, they go sort of all around the tailgate. It's really funky lighting. I was driving behind one and I was weirdly distracted by it. I'm like, I don't know if I like this or not. So I feel like it's going to be a love it or hate it proposition for the design on the back of that. Inside though, there's no nothing to love or hate. It's just love. It's a beautiful vehicle. It's comfortable. It has all the features. I found it, it feels like a Hyundai, they create these really lovely interiors, give things to you at a price that is better than what you would think you would get for what you're getting. And I did some interviews with these guys, and one of the things that they had said was that they were trying to design a family EV, but they really want, the EV part is great, but they really wanted it to be a family vehicle. Like, they wanted to make sure they didn't lose sight of the fact that this is going to have kids in the back, and it could have the dog, and it could have, a road trip, and you can have lots of luggage. So they wanted to make sure that all the features that you want in a vehicle to be handy for charging, and just the quality of the materials and how durable they are and all that kind of stuff are all there. So I really liked the Ioniq 9. I think it's a great vehicle. It has a pretty big spread of pricing because it goes from about 59 to 76 and change. So when you get up to that top, that's the calligraphy design. It gets kind of pricey. But this is an EV. But considering we were just talking about, I drove the Grand Highlander earlier, the top trim of the Grand Highlander is less than the bottom trim of the Ioniq 9.
And, you also, at least for now, you can still get $7,500 tax credit.
Yes.
On the Ioniq 9 until Congress, takes that away and gives it to billionaires.
Finally, someone's looking out for billionaires.
Yeah. So for now, at least, you can still get that $7,500 off. So that that lowers the price, by quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. Yeah. So the S trim, that base trim, one. In a lot of ways, the Ioniq 9 is very much like the Kia EV9, but there's also some important differences. So the base price of the Ioniq 9 is about $4,000 more than the cheapest EV9, and those are both rear-wheel drive, 215 horsepower. We didn't get a chance to drive that version, but that has the longest range at 335 miles. But when you get that base EV9 that with the rear wheel drive, that one has a smaller battery in it. So its range is only about 230, 240 miles. So for $4,000 less, you're getting quite a bit less range. You can also get the EV9 with the rear drive single motor with the bigger battery, which gets you up, over 300 miles. But all of the Ioniq 9s, all trim levels, only come with the larger battery, and it's a slightly bigger battery than the one you get. It's 110 kilowatt hours versus 99 kilowatt hours in the Kia. So you get a little bit more range out of the Hyundai than you do with the Kia. And depending on which trim, it's anywhere from about 305, I think, for the calligraphy design, up to 335 for the S trim.
Mm-hmm.
And that the rear lights that you mentioned, somebody identified what it looks like. It's actually, if you're familiar with Volvos of the early to mid 2000s, it's kind of that kind of look. Especially the Volvo wagons.
Yep, very much so.
Where they had kind of a prominent rear shoulder, and so that's kind of the look of, but pixelated. So think, mid 2000s Volvo wagon, but pixelated.
I like it. It took a little time to get used to. It's very striking. It is going to be a vehicle that once you see that, you're going to recognize it. Like, it really doesn't look like anything else that's out there right now. So it is a standout. I don't dislike it. It just is a little like, takes a few minutes to get your head wrapped around it. But in the end, after driving behind many of them for the course of the day, I did like how it looked. And we drove through a swamp with alligators. Well, not through the actual swamp, through a road through a swamp. Did you see any alligators?
We didn't see any gators. Saw a bunch of different kinds of birds. Heard some frogs in there, but did not hear any did not see any gators.
We saw gators. I stepped out of the car. Yeah, I stepped out of the car to take pictures with Jill Ciminillo, and my head has never been so much on swivel in my life, because it was a path, like a dirt road, and there was swamp sort of on either side. And they're like, well, you can stop. Just keep an eye out for the gators. I'm like, ha ha ha. But then we were driving. I'm like, oh my gosh. I see one of the eyes in the water. I'm like, we could die taking these photos. Snap pictures faster, Jill.
Miles Johnson from Hyundai said that one time when he was driving through there, he saw 5 alligators.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, let's send some, and
we get to
let's
look at
send
the water.
our least favorite journalist down that road.
Yeah. So this is the Savannah National Wildlife Refuge that we're talking about.
Who are we going to sacrifice?
Like, who did they tell and who didn't they tell? That's the question. Like,
who didn't know there were real alligators out there?
Tell.
One of the things I like about the Ioniq 9 versus the EV9 is, they both have the same basic screen setup. So, and it's the same kind of setup you find in a lot of the Hyundais and Kias now, with two 12.3-inch displays behind a single curved piece of glass. What Hyundai did not do that Kia did, on the Kia, in between the two larger displays, there's another smaller touchscreen area for a bunch of the climate control stuff. And when you are sitting in the driver's seat, the steering wheel basically cuts directly across that whole section. So if you want to adjust, if you want your heat blowing on your feet or your head or turn on the defrost, you kind of have to lean over and look around the steering wheel to see that panel.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Hyundai said, we're just going to leave that blank. It's just going to be a black plastic blank because you don't see it anyway with the steering wheel. And we're going to put those controls where they belong on a panel just below the touchscreen.
Yeah.
And that works really well. And the center console, as on the Ioniq 5, you could shift that back and forth, which is really nice. The third row, very usable. I sat back there, and I had headroom and knee room to spare, and I'm like 5'10", so I really enjoyed driving this thing. Oh, and the performance was surprisingly good. In the limited calligraphy and calligraphy design trims, you get 422 horsepower. On the SEL, you get 303, but on the 3 upper trim levels, you get 422 horsepower. And Hyundai says it'll do 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. I was driving with Jared Rosenholtz,
mm-hmm.
and he had his race box, and he hooked it up and did a couple of 0 to 60 runs. The first run was like 4.72 seconds. The second one was 4.67 seconds. So this thing is seriously quick.
It's fast. Speedy.
I like how Jared just like running around with his race box.
That's very Jared. Yeah, I got this handy. I'll check it out. I'm like, that is
like, guys.
Mm-hmm. That's on brand for Jared.
Guys.
But realistically, if you got the SEL with 303 horsepower, you're still going to be very happy with this thing. It's still plenty, because I think the 422, you have to press the boost button or something like that to fully engage it. So most of the time you're still going to be running 303. It's still plenty quick. Performance is not an issue with this thing. Roominess is not an issue with this thing. It is really nice. And one interesting detail that, from looking at the various trim levels, one of the things that we noticed when we first saw this thing is if you look at the fenders, around the wheel arches, there's like a little plastic insert, like an eyebrow above each of the wheels.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on which trims you get a different combination. So if you get the S or the SE, that whole flat wheel arch area with that insert is black, flat black. If you get the SEL, or if you get either the calligraphy or calligraphy design, that whole wheel arch and the insert are the same as the rest of the body color. But if you get the SEL or the limited, the 2 middle trim levels, you get a black wheel arch with the insert in body color. So different combinations depending on which trim you get.
Yeah, so it changes it up, which is a little bit, I guess that's fine. I mean, it gives it a little bit of the character, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like how surprised do you want your car to look?
Yeah.
Oh.
The one that Jared and I drove was a calligraphy, not a calligraphy design, which the calligraphy design has nicer looking wheels. But the calligraphy, ours was in that ionosphere green pearl, which is a fantastic color.
Can we talk a little bit about how the 3-row SUVs are slowly designed and turning into minivans?
Sure.
Because you look at it and like I am here for it. They're all turning into wagons and like just very large wagons and or minivans. Like the Gravity looks like a wagon minivan. This looks like a wagon and or minivan. Yeah.
These are the modern equivalent of the old Buick Roadmaster wagons or Ford Country Squire wagons. Yeah, they're just taller.
Don't tell the automakers or regular people that, because then they're like, oh, I don't want a wagon or a minivan. Just let them buy it and then enjoy it.
Yeah. The only thing that keeps this from being a minivan is that it's got hinged rear doors. It doesn't have sliding doors. If you put sliding doors on it, then it would be more functional, but nobody would buy it.
Yeah. I don't understand people, but sliding doors are the best. But what do I know?
I know. They're awesome.
I'm just
and this is coming from somebody who doesn't have kids.
I don't even have children. I don't want children. Yeah. I don't want to see children if I can help it.
I mean, both Nicole and I, raised kids, and I don't know about you, Nicole, but if I'd had something bigger than a Passat wagon when the kids were growing up, it definitely would have almost certainly been a minivan.
Okay, it wouldn't have been a minivan because I swore I would never buy one. I didn't want to be a minivan mom. I said I would never buy one. I bet a friend. He owes me $10, so I need to collect that. But I just was like, no, I'll buy a big SUV. I can't with a minivan. Because when I had my kids, I was like, oh, you're the soccer mom. I'm like, no, I'm never going to be that. Don't call me a soccer mom. I don't want to be that. I can't own a minivan. So I would have awkwardly made my way through with a large SUV.
But they're essentially, a large SUV is like the most basic vehicle.
They're not the same.
It's a basic vehicle. It's a
mini.
It is.
They are the perfect vehicle. They are the perfect vehicle for families, minivans.
Yeah,
They're perfect.
I just feel like they are the large SUV is the minivan because it's basic. It's basic as F. I don't know if we're saying the F word yet on this podcast, but we probably have. I don't remember. It was probably me. Sorry.
No, I don't think we have. So I've never marked an episode explicit. So it's fresh.
Basic as fresh. It's fresh.
Basic as fresh.
My cousin's kid one day I don't know what he was talking about, but he's like, in the 90s, I just feel like everyone was just walking around trying to be dope or fresh. I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard.
Dope or fresh.
After driving this vehicle and having driven the EV9 and also driving the next vehicle we're going to talk about, I really feel like Ford really screwed up and missed an opportunity by canceling their 3-row electric SUVs. Because I think especially this one, I think is going to be really popular.
Yeah,
I think it's going to sell really well.
I think I want to say yes, but I also want to say if they had not yet figured out a way to make them the monies,
Hyundai seems to be doing it. They claim they're profitable with their EVs.
They do. Oh no, I don't doubt that Hyundai is, but Ford, hasn't that been a bit of a struggle?
Yeah, it has been.
So I don't know what Ford's doing. I mean, I guess I would agree they missed it, but it's like if they can't make the monies, then let's not build that.
Yeah. All right. So anything? We didn't get a chance to do any charging tests with the Ioniq 9, but it does have a J3400 charging port, native, and it comes with adapters. Comes with 2 adapters. One to plug in a CCS port, a CCS cable, so you can charge at EA or EVgo or ChargePoint, and the other is a J1772 adapter. So if you already have a charger at home, you can plug that in and charge from your existing non-Tesla home charger. So I think they give you, it's not a cheap vehicle, it's not inexpensive, but you get a lot for it. There's a lot of value here.
Yeah, I would agree.
Oh, one other thing that they do, up front underneath the center stack, there's 3 USB-C ports. One of those is a 100-watt port, 100-watt USB-C port. So you can plug in your laptops or other higher powered devices and charge them off of that. And they give you a higher power USB-C cable that can actually transmit 100 watts. That comes with the car. So lots of good stuff in here. What did you think, Nicole, of the finish on the passenger side of the dashboard?
The finish on the passenger side of the dashboard.
It's a sort of interesting metallic finish, sort of marbleized metallic finish. They said,
"Oh, I know what you're talking about." It took me a second. My brain had to go back. I'm like, "What did it look like on the passenger side of the dashboard?" No, I wanted to like. It's neat in that it adds a little bit of visual appeal. It's different. It's not something you'll find everywhere, but it missed the mark a little bit for me because when you touch it, you want it to be something cool, and it's not. Did you like it?
I thought it looked interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not something I would touch very often, but I thought it looked kind of interesting.
Yeah,
it was different.
Yeah, so I kind of was like, okay, so it doesn't look bad, and I thought it looks good, but I wanted it. I don't know. It was one of those things that it looked really cool, but when you touch it, it just feels like plastic.
Yeah.
And you wanted it to feel like something different. But it does look cool. I did like how it looked and did think that it looked, it's not what you find in every other vehicle. So I always appreciate it when they do something and the design is a little bit different, a little bit eye-catching. But I wanted it to have a texture, a feel to it that was in line with how nice it looked like it should feel.
Yeah. All right. The day before I flew to Savannah, I drove another 3-row electric SUV, the Cadillac Vistiq, which is completes Cadillac's EV lineup for now, because they got the big Escalade, they got the Optic, the Lyriq, and then the Vistiq, and they've followed a similar pattern to what they did before with the XT5 and XT6, where the XT5 was their midsize 2-row, and then XT6 was a 3-row, taller, slightly longer 3-row body, but on the same wheelbase as the XT5. Same thing here, although the Lyriq has significantly longer wheelbase than the XT5 did. So this really works as a 3-row. It's several inches taller and about 6 inches longer than a Lyriq. And it's more powerful. 615 horsepower dual motor is the standard setup in the Vistiq. It's about $20,000 more than an Ioniq 9, but the interior also feels like a more expensive, more premium. I mean, the Ioniq 9 interior is really nice, but the Cadillac is definitely a significant step up from there. There's a bunch of stuff that's familiar from the Lyriq. So it's got the same 33-inch curved display, but instead of the row of buttons just below the center touchscreen area for climate control, they have incorporated another touchscreen down there that's tilted at about a 45-degree angle for the climate controls, which I would prefer physical controls, but they also explained the reason why they did that here is because the Vistiq has a 5-zone climate control system, and they just couldn't do enough buttons to control all that. So you've got dual zones for the first 2 rows. So the passengers in both the first 2 rows each get their own zone, and then a 5th zone for the rear, the 3rd row passengers. And because this is roughly the same size as Ioniq 9, it's got similar amount of rear seat room to the Ioniq 9, so I fit back there fairly comfortably. The one that we drove was in this celestial metallic color, which is kind of a purple tinted silver color, like a pale silver, which is a pretty cool looking color. And it had blue leather interior. This thing is really, really nice to drive. The Vistiq comes with 4-wheel, or at least on the upper trim levels has a 4-wheel air spring suspension, which is, driving this thing in Michigan on 23-inch wheels. It was still very, very comfortable. It soaked everything up, but also maintained good body control when we were driving it around some rural areas on some curving roads. It was quite enjoyable to drive. It's quick, very quick. 0 to 60 is about 3.7 seconds. Two big new things that they've added for the Vistiq compared to the previous Cadillac EVs. One is an upgraded version of Super Cruise, and I still remain dubious of hands-free systems, hands-free supervised systems. I still say that if you have to watch the road, you're reducing some traditional driver workloads, but creating new driver workloads that humans are just not very well equipped to deal with. But this one, they've done some interesting upgrades now. So they've started to do some integration. They have a different map provider, a company called Dynamic Map Platform, that they use for the geofencing to determine what roads Super Cruise can be used on. But they're also integrating with the Google Maps infotainment system. And so, Google Maps, if you've ever used it, and I think Apple Maps does the same thing, when you're navigating and you're coming up on an exit or an interchange, it gives you lane guidance about which lane you should be in for that particular exit. Super Cruise now looks at that lane guidance from Google Maps. And for the auto lane change, if you are in the left lane and your exit is on the right, when you're about a mile and a half out from your exit, it will start to, it'll look for a gap and it'll do the auto lane change for you to get you in the appropriate lane for your exit. For our drive, the first part of the drive, we were driving from Chelsea, Michigan towards Ann Arbor. You get to a lane split where M14 and US 90 or I-94 split. I-94 goes around the south side of the city. M14 goes around the north side, and it changed lanes over to the left to follow M14, which was our route, and it just stayed in hands-free mode the whole time. It didn't require hands on the steering wheel until we got back around on the other side of Ann Arbor and had to merge into US 23, and only for the merge did we have to go hands on. So that auto lane changing with the lane guidance is a nice feature to have. Another thing that they've done is incorporated Super Cruise road information into Google Maps. So when you use Google Maps, for your drive route, it gives you a thick blue line to show you, where you should be driving. Now, when you're on a road that is Super Cruise enabled, you get a thin white line down the middle of that thick blue line. So you can glance at the map and you can see, oh, is this a road where I can use Super Cruise, instead of just randomly pressing the button and see if Super Cruise will activate or not.
No.
You can just look.
I've been that person where I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah.
Now it's on.
They also, one of the complaints with Super Cruise a couple of years back, when Consumer Reports did some testing of these ADAS systems, one of the complaints they had about Super Cruise, and others have complained about it, was when it dropped out of hands-free mode. Basically, you had to go hands-on, but you didn't even get any lane centering assist, whereas Blue Cruise and other systems, kind of had a more gradual fallback. Now, when it wants you to go hands-on, you still have some lane centering assist available if you want it. So there's that. But then there's also, they've got an auto engage feature for Super Cruise now. So when you activate cruise control, so you don't even have to activate Super Cruise specifically, just turn on cruise control and set your speed. Then as soon as you get onto a road where Super Cruise, where you can go hands-free, the light bar will turn green and you can just take your hands off the wheel. You don't have to press any other buttons. And then if you're coming up on a construction zone where there's a lane shift, it'll go red and your seat will buzz, tell you to put your hands back on the wheel. You put your hands back on the wheel. As soon as you get through that construction zone and you're back where you can use hands-free mode, the light bar will turn green. You don't have to re-engage. It just does it automatically for you if you want. You can turn that off, but it'll automatically re-engage. So it'll just tell you, okay, you can take your hands off the wheel again. So that all worked really smoothly on this thing. So very, a lot of stuff that, like I said, I'm still questionable as to whether you should be using this at all. But if you're going to use it, it does, it should work really well. And Super Cruise still works the best of all of these systems. And they're up to somewhere between 500,000 and 600,000 miles of roads now where you can use it, as opposed to Blue Cruise, which is only about 130,000 miles of roads. Let's see, what else was there on the Vistiq? I think comparing the Vistiq to some of the other 3-row luxury electric utilities, I think it generally compares really well. Relative to the Volvo EX90, it's got, it's more powerful and it's got a lot more third row room. The EX90's third row is pretty tight. This one is very usable for adults. Compared to the Mercedes-Benz EQS SUV, also better third row, and the base price of the EQS is about $10,000 more than the most expensive version of the Vistiq, which is about $95,000, and the EQS starts at $105,000. Lucid Gravity, a little better performance, depending on what you prefer in terms of design. It's that's a trade-off. It's up to any individual what they like, but I think it's fairly competitive with the Vistiq or with the Gravity. The Lucid, or rather the Vistiq, does have rear wheel steering, which is nice. What makes it more maneuverable. At one point, I had to make a U-turn in a neighborhood after taking a wrong turn, and it was surprising how tight this thing can turn. Even compared to something like a BMW X7, it is more affordable. Offers better performance, and is arguably better looking, I think, than the X7. So it's if you're looking for a luxury 3-row electric SUV, I think this one is really competitive with what's out there in the marketplace today.
Cool. Good job, Cadillac.
Yeah, I think Cadillac's doing a good job with their EVs, although, the Escalade IQ is just stupidly large and heavy.
I haven't driven the Escalade.
Otherwise,
I feel like
I'd still like to see people look. I still think people look at Cadillac a little bit as like granddad's car. I know they've gone a long way to changing that, but I still think there's a little of that there.
Yeah, no, that's
even though
fair.
It's not anymore. But I think there's a little bit of a hangover from that.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's absolutely come a long way. This is not something, this vehicle, and the rest of the current Cadillac lineup, having ridden in some of those, granddad Cadillacs, growing up, I can definitely say that, this is not that kind of vehicle by any stretch of the imagination. Beyond the badge, there's no relationship between these modern Cadillacs and
there's really not. They're so drastically different, but I still wonder. It still feels like it's a very, I don't know. I feel like do you feel like they've hit their stride in terms of people seeing them as what they are, not what they were?
I think they're on the way there. I think they're definitely in a better place than they were, 5 or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And, I just saw some stats, I guess there's, they were just talking about conquest sales for the EVs.
Yeah.
80% of customers buying electric Cadillacs are coming from other brands.
Okay.
So, if they're pulling in, competitors to buy their electric SUVs, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Now, will anybody trade in their, Bentley or Maybach or Rolls-Royce to get a Cadillac Celestiq? That's another story. But for the rest of their EVs, for their 4 SUVs now, I think they're very, very competitive in their respective market segments.
That's good. I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems to make sense. I think they're getting better. The cars are fantastic. The public just has to realize it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Honda. Honda had an event in Japan last week. Their CEO was speaking, and they're, as as should be no real surprise to anybody, they're slowing some of their EV plans. They still want to. They're still launching a bunch of new EVs with the 0 Series and the Acura RSX starting in the fourth quarter of this year. Those are moving forward. They also have their partnership with Sony for a Fila, and that's going to be built towards the end of the year, beginning of next year. But like a year and a half ago, they announced a big, like $11 or $12 billion investment in their operations in Canada to build a battery plant there and to retool a factory to build EVs, and also a joint venture for cathode materials processing there. And all of that is being paused for the time being. They're not saying they're canceling it forever, but they're pausing it for now because they don't see enough sales to justify that investment at this point in time, and especially with what's going on with tariffs.
Yeah, it's like you're like, it's, again, companies really like consistency. You give them chaos, and they're like, whoa, they're going to pull back on everything because they don't know what's going to happen between this week, next week, tomorrow, next hour. It's not good for any companies, big or small.
No, I don't think it's surprising. I think a lot of companies are having to do the same thing. And the challenge always, especially in the auto industry, it's not like they have a 1-year development cycle. Things are in progress so far ahead of time. It's hard to slow down that ship and change direction, but they do.
Yeah. But in the near term, they're following the same strategy as Toyota, with putting more hybrids into more cars. And apparently they're planning to add hybrids to the Passport, Pilot, and Ridgeline in the
What's crazy future is that Honda knows there is a desire for an EV because the Prologue sells really well.
Yeah.
So they know that there's a hunger for it, but it's just like, okay, well, we had plans to build a battery factory here, but now we can't really. Can we do that? Should we not do that? What do we do? Okay, fine. Just put some hybrids out. Let's just it's sort of like batten down the hatches and hope for the best at this point for a lot of automakers.
Yeah, I mean, across their current hybrid lineup with the CR-V, the Accord, and the Civic, at least in North America, the CR-V, I think, is now like 56% hybrid penetration. And my guess is when the next gen CR-V rolls out in a couple of years' time, it'll probably follow the same path as RAV4 and just go 100% hybrid. Same with the Accord when they redo that. And I wouldn't be surprised to see CR-V do that. And, like the Prelude, when they launch that, that's going to be hybrid only. So I think they're going to follow the same path as Toyota and, increasingly go hybrid only, at least on their volume models.
Yeah, just till things are hopefully figured out at some point, whenever that is.
Yeah. Okay. Previously, we've talked about getting out of cars that have electromechanical door latches, like Teslas, but also a bunch of other cars, if the vehicle loses power after a crash, because there was a couple of different crashes where people died when they couldn't get out of Teslas because they couldn't figure out how to open the doors. So apparently, some people have started to install ripcords in their rear doors. So basically, putting a little handle with a tag attached to the emergency door release in the back seats, because those are often the most hidden, the back door ones. In the case of the Model 3 and Model Y, they are buried at the bottom of the map pocket and the doors. Underneath, there's like a rubber trim cover, so you got to pull that up, and then the release is underneath that. And so some people started putting little things in there so that people can find it, and see it and find it in the event of a crash and get the doors open.
Why can't we just have mechanical doors? Just like I do.
That would be too easy.
I had a, so when I got the Model X in for review for the first time, it was part of a trip. First I wanted the Model X, then they were like, well, we're gonna go to this to see the Gigafactory opening. I'm like, well, give me a Model X for that drive. And they're like, hold on. And then they decided to give everyone a Model X to drive to Reno from San Francisco. Well, they gave me they gave me a pre-production version. They gave me the one the press team was supposed to be driving, and the press team had mine. So I drove it down, I came back, it acted really weird. And at one point, the rear door wouldn't close. Like one of the doors wouldn't close, one of the gull wing doors, it just wouldn't close all the way. So I'm just driving around, I was all beep, beep, beep. And I end up to like try to figure it out. I had to like dig under the carpet, pull some stuff up just to find the latch. Because and let me find the mechanical latch. Maybe that'll get this thing to close. And I remember like going through all this just to find this latch. And I'm like, well, this is just not a good thing.
Yeah. Adding complexity for the sake of style rather than functionality is just
never good.
Just give us mechanical doors, please.
Just regular old doors. That's all we need.
So I pull on it and the little thing goes click and then it opens and then everyone gets in and out.
Well, the funny thing is, as we talked about previously, is on a lot of these cars, the mechanical latch is usually like in many cases is right near the electromechanical one, just a few inches away, but it's just, it's kind of molded in the same color as the surrounding plastic. What was it? I think it was the Rivian. Yeah, on the Rivian R1s. There's a mechanical latch literally like 2 inches away from the electronic latch, just below it on the underside of the armrest. But it's it's molded in the same color as the surrounding trim, so you don't really see it. But it's like, if it's right there anyway, just let me use that.
When they
don't waste the money on the electronic.
When they gave me the Model 3, they were like, oh, well, here's the mechanical one, but don't use it because you'll wear it out. It's not good for the car to use that. I'm like, what is happening?
What?
This is what they told me. They were not.
It's only meant for one use. We crash, you open the door with the mechanical latch, and then you never use it again.
They were not happy with my review of the Model 3. I got along and because I was one of the first people to get it, so they're like, "Oh, Roberto will give us a great review because he's a tech journalist." I'm like,
Roberto, what have you done?
And then I drove the car, and I'm like, "Well, here's all the things that are wrong with this car." And then very long phone calls with, I'm like, I'm not changing my review. I'm very steadfast. Like, is there anything wrong? Is there anything that's not true? They're like, well, no, but anyway.
Yeah, everything is just true. We just don't like it. Okay,
exactly.
Well, sorry.
Everything you said was true. We just don't like what you said. I'm like, sorry, I can't. Yeah.
That's the way this all works.
I can only tell you what the car does now, and right now it does bad things.
All right, and then the Chevy Silverado EV. When they first announced it a couple of years back, Chevy promised that there would be more trims besides the work truck and the ridiculously expensive RST. And now for 2026 model year, they have added the Trail Boss. So they've added an off-road version of the Silverado, which, let's see, the Trail Boss with the big battery, the 24 module battery, apparently is going to get like 478 miles of range, which is better than I expected, given that they've lifted this thing. It's given it a 2-inch lift, and it's got all-terrain tires, and it's also a mere $88,695.
I mean, it's a trail truck. Those things are all bonkers expensive, regardless of the powertrain. They're always like, hey, do you want to a
They're all
lifted and
bunkers.
blah 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 Toyota Tundra. Yeah, all right, that's 90,000. Like what?
Yeah. Well, you can get the Trail Boss with the extended battery, which is the 20 module battery. It still has 410 miles of range for $72,000.
There you go.
Just
There you go.
I will tell you. I think I
Yeah.
said this when I had the Silverados. That Chevy needs to do a better job of telling people how much this truck costs. Because when I had the LT, I had a man come up to me. He's like, "Did you buy that?" I'm like, "No, I write about cars." He's like, "You know, they started at $100,000 because that's when they first came out, and that has stuck as far as the public is concerned."
Well, because that was the only one that they
Every
sold at
Silverado
first.
cost $100,000, and you can get the work truck standard with 286 miles of range, which is more than enough for right. I'm looking at their thing, $55,000. But as far as everyone in the world is concerned, every Silverado EV is $100,000. So I don't know, maybe do some ads or something. I don't know, Super Bowl ad. I don't know how that works. When's the Super Bowl? Oh, it's already over, huh? Yeah, I know a lot about. I'm a sports.
You're off by a little bit,
I don't know
Robbie.
sports. Apologies.
Well, aren't the NBA playoffs still going on?
Maybe. I get on Blue Sky and then people are talking about basketball. So I thought like weeks ago they were talking about, I'm like, oh, this is the end of it. I was like quarterfinals or something. I don't know. I didn't even know it was basketball season. I don't know when anything's happening until I see people talking about it. Sorry, sports people.
I don't pretend to know any of the sportsness.
This is the world's worst sports podcast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're not the ones you want.
The only sport I care about is auto racing.
Even that I don't know a lot about. I know some about, but not a lot about. I'm never going to sit and watch it.
I like all the tech and all the stuff around the auto racing, but I don't care who wins. I don't who cares? I'm like, oh, it has this thing and this cool stuff, and oh, this is awesome, and I'll go to them, and I'll like, I like to go down to the pits, and I like to talk to the engineers and all that stuff, but I don't care who wins. I'm not invested at all.
All right. Then one more thing, I'd especially like to hear from you on this one, Robbie. Congress voted this week, or at least the Senate voted to rescind California's waiver, EPA or Clean Air Act waiver that allows them to set some of their own standards. In particular, this one was for the requirement that all new light duty vehicles sold in California from 2035 onwards needed to be zero emission vehicles.
Man, I've lived here all my life, except for like a few months when I lived in Kansas City. And I remember as a small child, just how horrible the air was in LA. Just absolutely horrendous. And it still can be really, really bad. And it's gotten better because of CARB, California Air Resource Board. We're a big state. We have the most people, which means we have the most cars. We're the largest auto, market in the United States. And the fact that we could like, hey, let's tone it down a little bit. And automakers have done it. They have complied and they have sold cars here because this is the biggest market. I just don't. And then you can't sit there and yell about states' rights and then remove states' rights.
Yeah.
And I know that I've heard from a couple people are like, oh, there's no way 2035. Well, first of all, that's 10 years away. A lot of stuff has happened and just in the last 2 or 3 years in EVs. I looked at currently the sell-through rate, the sales of battery electric, not counting plug-in hybrid, not counting whatever, battery electric vehicles, new cars sold in America and not United States, in California, 19.5%. That's if you take in, like, I think the Bay Area is like 25%, and the number just keeps going up. And so just some automakers are like, well, this is impossible, this is never going to happen. I'm like, we got 10 years to go and we're already at 20% statewide, 25% in some areas. This isn't going to be as hard as you think it is. And
I believe that the California mandate does include plug-in hybrids.
Yeah, you still have plug-in.
So
I
yeah.
don't know. It's such a weird. It's we California has every state has a weird how we deal with. I mean, I live near refineries. I can almost see a refine. Like if I drive 2 minutes from my house, boom, refineries. If I drive 2 minutes away, boom,
Mhm.
refineries. I live near refineries, and we know there are times when we get, oh, by the way, don't go outside for the next 2 days. That sort of situation.
Yeah.
And I lived in the LA area, and they're like, hey, it's really bad outside. Don't go outside because everyone's driving and it's hot. And to be able to say, hey, why don't we create a system where it doesn't have to be that bad. It doesn't have to be that horrible. People can go outside. The weather, the air can get better. And they did some research at Berkeley, and just the Bay Area's uh, increase in buying EVs versus gas, the air quality has gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea, they're like, well, no, you're not allowed to do that. Why? Just because you can't. Why? There's no reason other than
because there are some automakers that said no, we can't or don't want to do this, including
Toyota's
Toyota.
been very Toyota and GM have been very like, no, we don't want to do this. And I'm like, well,
and we've got an administration that is fundamentally hateful of any kind of clean energy. They're trying to kill renewables, they're trying to kill EVs, they're trying to, if it doesn't burn coal or crude oil, they don't
which is
want
ridiculous because coal is a losing proposition monetarily. When you look at
it.
the things that happen, I've written about the grid. And I've written about Texas, especially because in Texas, there's a ton of wind and solar. And they didn't do that in Texas because they felt like being green and hippy dippy. They did that because it makes sense financially. These are financial decisions that people are making in order to save money because they want to charge you a lot of money, and they want profit margins. And when they look at the profit margins, they're like, oh, we can make more profit if we use the sun. Because if the
Yeah.
sun isn't there, we're all dead. So it's going to stick around.
Yeah. I mean, the cost of solar panels and wind turbines has come down so much in the last 15 years that, it is more economical to do renewables. And in fact, in the last couple of months, we've actually seen reduction in fracking oil and gas production because with the policies in place, the price of oil has come down. The price of oil and gas has come down to the point where it's no longer economically viable to frack. And this is the same thing. We've seen it happen before. It happened in 2014, 2015. So there is a floor for oil prices. We are never ever going to get back to $1 a gallon gasoline.
It doesn't. It's just not going to happen. I don't understand. There's just, I don't know. I know that the administration really hates California. I mean, they put things in. They're just like, oh, and also we're going to punish California for this. In the like, what? I'm like, fine, whatever, um, it's disappointing. It's depressing. It puts a lot more people in harm. It makes the air worse for folks who live along freeways. I live next to a freeway, and so that's my penance for telling people to buy cars. But I live next to an interstate, and I don't know. I can't. It's mean spirited short-sightedness for the sake of being mean-spirited and short-sighted. It doesn't make any sense financially. It doesn't make any sense for people's health. It doesn't make any sense for the environment. And it's like, well, we can make more money off these gas cars right now, and we can continue to do it. And dealerships, like, we can make more money off cars breaking versus EVs that have 3 moving parts, so they're less likely to break.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's sort of, we've depended on this for a long time. We have our smog. You have to take your car in to get smog to make sure your car isn't just destroying the environment every time you drive around. And they're like, no, you're not allowed to do that. I'm like, what? You can't yell about states' rights and then remove states' rights. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Let's move into some listener questions and comments. We had some feedback regarding last week's conversation about um, uh, cheap sports cars. Finding sports cars under $40,000. And one of the things that we talked about was there aren't a whole lot of choices, and a lot of the smaller cars like that, if you're tall, can be problematic. But there were a couple of suggestions that came in, some through email and some through the Discord. There was one in particular that I can't find it now, but I think it was on the Discord. Somebody brought up one that we forgot to talk about, which was a Corvette.
Oh yeah, you can get a Corvette.
You can, yeah, I mean, you can get a used C5 or C6 or C7, or if you like the older ones, C4 or C5, for well under 40 grand. And those are considerably more roomy than a Miata. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. If you're looking for a relatively affordable used sports car, fits. We had Todd K in the Discord commented, as a tall guy, liking cars can be annoying. At 6'6", I don't fit in many of the great fun cars. In general, German or Korean cars tend to be roomier, but many others are hit and miss. I can't fit in a Honda Civic Si, but I am able to fit in the Civic Type R because the lack of a sunroof often helps. I get jealous of those who fit in S2000s, Miatas, or even BRZs because I'd like to be able to get a light and affordable fun car. For my fellow tall people, I'd highly recommend going to a CarMax and just trying to sit in anything that interests you. If you take notes and then later look up the headroom specs online, you'll get a better idea of what cars might fit you. For instance, if a car has 38 inches or more of headroom, there aren't a lot in that range. I'm pretty sure I'll fit. Also, Leith responded, "I have short legs and a tall torso, so I'm only 5'10", and that's kind of my proportions as well. But sit like I'm 6'3". I've tried it in S2000. I had my head cocked to the side to fit, and literally could not see out of the back window.
Jeez.
And then we also had an email from our friend Chuck Goolsby. Says, from your most recent podcast, Will Robbie Fit? I will offer my experience with a used BMW Z4, especially specifically a 2007 M Roadster. I bought it in 2012 for $30,000. It was an off-lease California car, and I'm the third owner. It had 34,000 miles in the odometer when it arrived in my driveway. It currently has 120,000 miles, and every single one of those miles has been an absolute blast. Every time I drive this car, I say to myself, I should drive this car more. That's always a good sign when you can say that to yourself. I've taken road trips up and down the West Coast in it multiple times, driven it in TSD rallies, and even taken it on the track a few times. I do 95% of my own maintenance and repair on my vehicles, so it's been cared for very well. The only jobs in this car I've handed to a pro have been replacing the soft top motor and replacing a broken motor mount. The latter happened because of one trip to wine country in California. We ended up on a long stretch of highway that was being resurfaced after a fire and was probably 40 miles of rough gravel or broken asphalt. Had I known, I would have picked a different road. Things I've done myself beyond normal maintenance have been replacing the alternator, coil packs, the Vanos filter, that's the variable valve timing, the wiper fluid reservoir, a headlight ballast, and the battery. It's been quite reliable and wonderful to drive. It's actually quite a bit of stuff for 120,000 miles, especially an alternator and coil packs. But anyway, of course, the M has the amazing S54 engine, and while touchy at the beginning of its lifetime, was largely very reliable once it went into the E85M at the end of its career. That's the model code for that Z4. And yes, it requires special oil and a stringent maintenance schedule, but for any DIY guy, it is possible to keep running for hundreds of thousands of miles. It has that winning formula of a big engine and a lightweight roadster chassis with a long hood and a short rear, more a Cobra than an MG when you compare it to a Miata. They regularly trade on sites like Bring a Trailer and Cars and Bids for great values, depending on mileage, between $15,000 and $40,000. So well within that person's budget. So yeah, I mean that Z4 definitely is that was the first generation Z4, definitely one worth considering. It's a little roomier than the Miata or S2000. In fact, I've got a neighbor around the corner that has a Z4, not an M, just a standard Z4 of that generation, and she drives it a lot, and loves it.
Very cool.
All right, and then finally, Mark L had a couple of offbeat questions. Number one, if you could snap your fingers and be magically qualified to drive a race in any of the major racing series, F1, IndyCar, NASCAR, IMSA, would you do it? We all know that race car drivers are on the petite size, aka fun sized. So you'd all be sized accordingly. I recall when NASCAR faithful were up in arms about going from carbs to fuel injection, and also when Toyota was allowed to race. I could just imagine the uproar of not hearing the rumble of the V8s. So, first thing I want to say is on the size question, actually, that used to be the case, is that a lot of race car drivers, were like jockey size. They tended to be on the short end. But that's actually not really true anymore. If you look at like the current F1 field, the 20 drivers
are
in there,
all way
I think
shorter.
the average height's about 5'9", 5'10", and there are several drivers that are over 6 feet tall, like George Russell is 6'1", and I think Max Verstappen's like 5'11" or 6 foot. So a lot of current generation drivers are actually surprisingly tall. There's still a lot of shorter drivers, but also a surprising number of taller drivers. And then same thing in IndyCar. Like Graham Rahal is like 6'2", I think. There's quite a few taller drivers now because race cars have gotten larger in part, for safety reasons, and so a lot of these taller drivers can actually fit now. But what about you? Which type of car would you want to drive if you could?
I would drive F1.
Can I say WRC instead?
Oh,
absolutely.
I feel like that's fair.
Yeah.
I think F1 out of all these, I don't feel like going in a circle. I like actually driving. I'm sorry, this is not NASCAR racers are that shit's hard. But yeah, F1 is
Actually, you know what is surprisingly hard is drag racing.
Oh, drag racing.
Before the first time I tried it, it's like, I mean, you step on the gas and go. I mean, how hard could it be? It's actually really, really hard to do well because, I mean, you're talking such a short period of time. You've got to have like snap reflexes. I've done it. Not something I would want to do professionally, but for me, it would be sports cars of some sort. Something like IMSA or World Endurance Championship. Although rally would be a lot of fun
you get
to
jump the car, you get to go sideways, you get to roll the car, you get to hit trees. I mean, what's not to like? You got a friend in the car to tell you which way to go.
Yeah,
that's a very good point.
You get a friend. You got a friend in me.
You get a friend. You get a buddy.
Come on.
All right. And then question number 2. Do you envision a world where any of the above mentioned series switches to 100% electric? I know F1 has their Formula E, but would F1 proper ever migrate over? Lastly, beyond going electric, what about racing by remote control, as in taking the driver out of the cockpit in harm's way, like in a video game?
I don't see. I mean, I think when you think F1, F1 doesn't need to go electric. The amount of if you think about, all the biggest environmental impact is all the moving around. It's not the cars. Mm-hmm. So let them have gas engines. I don't see. And then driving remotely, it's not the same. Like, I am horrible at those sims. I am absolutely horrible. I don't play them because I know about them, but every time I get in one of those sim racing systems, because I can't feel the road, I don't have the sort of the entire cognitive body experience. I'm just running off the road.
I'm terrible too.
I'm slamming into things.
I can't.
On the road, I'm fine.
In any of those racing sims, it's like, oh, have I ever driven a car before? Like, I'm terrible at them. But I could see how something where people did race real cars from afar out of the car as a separate thing, not replacing something, but as a separate skill, because I don't think it's a separate skill
I
set.
think they should have racing sims, but the cars are really small, like little RC cars.
Like just like
Yeah.
RC cars, we have that
But they
already,
have to
Robbie.
sit in the sim instead of just having the little controller and they can see it. They have to sit in the sim, so the
Sit
little
in an
tiny
actual
RC
sim
car has
situation. Okay.
little cameras, and so we can have them race through people's houses,
Well,
like through a McDonald's, like just a lot of like crazy ideas for tracks. That's my dream now.
I think that's actually the way they should do the Monaco Grand Prix now, because modern F1 cars are so large. You know, modern, if you compare a current generation F1 car to one from even from the 1990s, they have grown so much that, you know, the Monaco F1 race is basically just a parade now. It basically comes down to qualifying. You know, I was looking at the results earlier, and the top 10 were basically the same order that they started the race in.
There's no room.
Yeah, there's no room to pass. So I love your idea, Robbie, of having smaller cars and have the drivers, because you can't really expand the track. So there's no room to expand anywhere in that city. So, you know, have smaller cars and have the drivers
They
drive
could be
them
quarter
remotely.
size,
Brilliant
like
idea.
125 scale cars.
125 scale.
125, not one. Yeah. Anyway, they can be smaller cars, like little quarter size cars, and they could race them. And then they're just, you know, they're just gonna slam into each other like nonstop. It's gonna be like a Rock'em Sock'em Robots race, but it's still gonna be cool because they know they can't hurt anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So for some of these older narrow tracks, perfect idea. Otherwise, yeah, I want to see the drivers in the car.
And or put them in carts. Electric, just put them in carts. They all grew up kart racing. Just put them in carts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you don't really need F1 to go electric because you do have Formula E. You know, and you know the other series, most of the other major series are hybridized. You know, F1 is hybridized. You know, the cars today, you know, are faster, but they're also like 50% more efficient. They're almost 50% energy efficient, which is way better than any production car. And you know, these things are, you know, they're running for a couple of hours at a time, you know, every couple of weeks. They're not, you know, they're not using, you know, they're not polluting very much. They're not using a huge amount of energy. Like you said, compared to moving everything around the world, you know, that takes a lot more, that has a lot more environmental impact. But that's one of the interesting things that Formula E does, actually. So Formula E, at the beginning of the season, all the teams pack up all their equipment that they need for a race weekend, the cars, spares, all their computers and everything else, all their tools, into a couple of containers. And those get shipped out by boat to the various venues. And those don't come back to the race shop until the end of the season. So they go from one track to another. Whereas in Formula One, you know, a lot of the stuff, you know, unless they've got back-to-back race weekends, you know, a lot of the stuff will end up going back to the shop, you know, in between races. And a lot of other series, they do that as well. So Formula E, they take the shortest route, you know, from one venue to the next, you know, and then, you know, they just send the people out. And, you know, if they need some additional spares, you know, they might send those out. But you know, that's, you know, they're trying to do what they can to minimize the impact of the whole series, not just what's going on the track for the race.
I mean, and you think about like NFL, like, you know, all those people driving to the places, you know, Major League Baseball, all those people driving to the place. Maybe like most sporting events they're not environmentally great. I think one of the cool things that San Francisco did is they didn't pay for the stadium for the baseball team. They're like, no, we're not paying for that. But also they put it next to public transportation, and then they just increase public transportation during that time, and they tell everyone, take public transportation. There's like, you can park down there, but it's a bad scene. But everyone just gets on the, you know, you just get on a train and the train takes you right there to the park. Everyone gets off. Yeah, it's pretty, yeah. So it sort of reduces it, and it also reduces the insane traffic that's going to happen.
Nicole, there was also another comment in Discord that you probably didn't see because I don't think you're ever in there. But it was from Jeff D. It says there's a brand new BP Pulse DC fast charging station at Logan Airport next to the rental car facility. Apparently it just opened recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Steve from Plug and Play EV and Corbin, the Ioniq guy, have covered it recently. So if you're driving the Wagoneer S to the airport,
by the rental car station. Okay. Yeah. I'll have to look. I didn't know that was them. Not normally the rental cars like in a different, I mean, I know where they are, but it's like, yeah, I don't normally drive by that way because I'm not really renting a car here, but I will check it out. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
So while we're in Texas this week, Nicole and I sat down with some executives for some interviews. And we'll be putting those out over the next couple of weeks. Patrons already have them. So if you are supporting us on Patreon, thank you so much. And you've already got these interviews. But for everybody else, the first one up here is Cooper Ericksen, who is the head of product planning for Toyota North America. And we talked about a bunch of stuff, hybrids and EVs and the RAV4 and the BZ and other stuff. We've also got an interview that Nicole and I did with Mike Tripp, who is the group vice president of marketing for Toyota brand. That'll be next week for non-patrons. And then also next week, we'll also have Daisuke Ito, who is the chief engineer for Toyota's EVs, the BZ and the CHR and the CHR or the BZ Woodland. So I'll have that next week as well. But keep listening right now for our conversation with Cooper Ericksen. Some really interesting stuff in there. And we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
All right. So you had a product planning for Toyota North America.
Yes.
So over the last several years, Toyota's talked a lot about, the idea of the 1-690 rule.
Yeah.
And, I mean, for obvious reasons, given what the technology that you have available, promoting hybrids, it's a great idea. But, when you think about it, and I've had conversations with people in Toyota over the last several years, and, the argument that's been made for hybrids actually makes total sense, given the energy and resources required to make EV batteries. So, I guess you've taken a big step forward now with the new RAV4. You've had several other models that are now exclusively hybrid. RAV4 is now exclusively hybrid going forward. How do you feel that's going, and what's been the reaction from consumers about getting rid of combustion only powertrains in some of these very high volume models like Camry and obviously Prius and Sequoia and Sienna?
Yeah. It's a great question. And, honestly, it's interesting to look through the lens of customer perception today. Today, people are great with hybrids. We're not really having any pushback on people that don't want a hybrid. Do you have 1 in 1,000 that they don't want any electrification? Could that be? Yes. But there's many, many more customers that want a sedan that gets 51 miles per gallon, that's got good performance and it looks great and it's affordable. So the customers that want it way outnumber any fringe that might not want it for whatever reason. But what's interesting is the decisions that led to RAV4 being revealed last night took place 4 years ago, and what gave us confidence to make that decision is a decision that was made 8 years ago when we made Sienna 100% hybrid. That was the first, going off of the Prius playbook of this is the only way the car comes is hybrid. We always had options. Yeah, it's got a hybrid.
For a while there in the late 2000s, you were starting to expand the Prius family, into a family of vehicles.
Yeah, and there was I think a school of thought back then that yes, the hybrids would be connected to Prius and we'd have a Prius SUV and a compact Prius and a regular Prius. That thinking way changed when we decided to more mainstream the hybrid platform or powertrain and take that on other products. So then you started seeing it proliferating to RAV4 in 2014. So back then we made a tough decision to transition Sienna, and frankly, it exceeded our expectations. Customers quit asking about all of the things they were asking on hybrids. We faced a lot of pushback on a few key things on hybrids. One, do I have to plug it in? Asking dealers. We're talking for decades. Dealers got pushback. Like, well, I don't know.
It's been 25 years since you lost Prius in North America.
Yeah. So do I need to plug it in? And then battery replacement. The battery's really expensive. I heard you got to replace them. Like, I don't want that issue. So we strategically applied a 10-year, 150,000-mile battery warranty to all of our hybrids and plug-ins about 5 years ago, I want to say. And what was kind of cool is internally, we looked at all of our decades of warranty repairs and durability studies, and we funded that 150 with a small amount of money because they're lasting a long time. So it wasn't that big a financial risk for us yet because they're lasting. So we took the how much does it cost for my battery to be replaced kind of condition off the table, and it was off to the races. So yeah, that the Sienna, been sold out for basically 3 or 4 years now. And so it led to, Camry and Rav. And so now if you look at our overall powertrain strategy, there's a role for each powertrain. And if you look at all of our products, we have 5 products under $30,000. Let's take a Corolla, for instance. We can't really transition Corolla to 100% hybrid because the number one need for Corolla is to be affordable. And for that customer, even a $1,500 price up for hybrid would really take a lot of the customers out of the market. So an ICE engine, as efficient as we can make it, excuse me, is the name of the game for affordable entry. And then and then on the far other side of the spectrum, there's some towing, heavy-duty truck capabilities that require an ICE engine. Everything in between, small SUV, mid SUV, large SUV, sedans, everything, we don't need ICE. So everything we're planning in the core of our product lineup, the base condition is hybrid.
So does it really
question then is, do we need plug-in or not? And then EV.
So losing that ICE engine for the bulk of things, really just on the Corolla, like that's the only place where you see it is, and it's truly just because of the financial proposition for that one?
Corolla Cross, primarily. Yeah, and so you can have that. And then a more hybrid on the other side.
On the other side, so one for capability and one for affordability.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, someday there'll be a new technological solution to the most affordable product. Honestly, I don't know what that's going to be. What's going to win the affordable product competition? Could it be an EV if battery supply comes up and there's recycling for rare earth minerals? It can be reused and the price comes down. I mean, it could be, next 10 years, BEV could serve the role as the most affordable product in a vehicle's or in a company's portfolio. Right now, that's not the case. And so right now, ICE serves that role.
So, there obviously, there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty for the industry right now from several different perspectives, whether it's trade policy, regulatory policy around emissions, fuel economy standards. And for, with the transition to your highest volume nameplate to 100% hybrid, I guess, obviously for that kind of volume, I would assume that you probably want to localize as much of the production, at least in North America, as possible. So will the RAV batteries, are those going to be produced in the new North Carolina battery plant, or are those still going to be imported from?
Depends. And look, the philosophy of building high volume products in the local market has been a cornerstone of Toyota for decades and decades and decades. So that's why we've invested $50 billion in U.S. production. We have 11 production facilities in the U.S., 14 in North America. So yes, for a large volume vehicle, it makes the most amount of sense for logistics, supply chain, and everything to build it where you're selling it. Other products, if you can't get 100, 150,000 units of volume, then it doesn't make sense to build it in one. So we import. So we've been looking at the global demand of RAV4, and it's just off the chart. I mean, our 470,000 units last year.
Yeah, I think it was about 970 or something globally.
Yeah, it was selling 1 million, and it's 1 million supply constrained. So basically, any plant globally that can build RAVs is probably going to build RAVs. So for us in North America, it's Canada, and it's Georgetown, Kentucky, and it's Japan. So the batteries for U.S. production, yes, should be coming from our hybrid line in our new plant. But PHEV batteries are Japan sourced. And so primarily the PHEVs are built in Japan and come here. So
is that going to continue to be the case with the 26? The plug-ins will still be coming from Japan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, those things change over time as plug-ins go up in volume. Then you get that economy of scale that starts to make more sense to bring it here. This is not tariff related activity. This is just the way we normally run our business activity.
Yeah, it's just a matter of scale. How many plants are you going to have producing that particular variant based on how many you sell? Yeah. So I know since the RAV4, then called Prime, and now plug-in hybrid, was launched, it has been quite supply constrained. It's been hard for people that want one to get one. Is that something that with the 26 and beyond, will there be a greater supply available of those for customers that want them?
Yeah, strategically, we're increasing the total volume of plugins. It serves a great regulatory benefit for us. It also, we recognize the demand from consumers for that technology. PHEV is very interesting, and not too many of the average person understands even what it is. But we've done lots of consumer research on this, and you get people in a room and what's your primary powertrain? EV, hybrid, or ICE, or somebody says plug-in, and then you say, okay, now we're going to educate you on these powertrains. Here's do you know what a PHEV is? Well, not really. So we educate. Well, the movement on EV doesn't move that much, but PHEV goes from to, oh yeah, like the acceptance rate of PHEV is up equal to or higher than BEV. People figure out, oh man,
if I just plug it in every night, I can basically drive a BEV.
Yeah.
And then when I need to go to grandma's house,
I've got a BEV with 600 miles of range because it turns into a hybrid, and the convenience. So it's almost like two cars in one, because remember, the vast majority of EV volume up to today, the last 10 years, has been sold to affluent households that have multiple vehicles. So you got options. You got your long range weekend, take the kids here. You got your commuter. That's fine. But as BEV volume increases, you'll have less of the affluent and multiple car households, and it'll need to start filtering into, I got one car, I live in an apartment, So these way of life things become more and more important. So having two cars in one, I can have a BEV, don't need to go to the gas station. And then I got my car for long trips and stuff. When people get educated on it, it's really good.
So where you're trying it, or will you say when people get educated, they get it, and they're like, PHEVs are great. Aside from bringing consumers into a room and telling them and talking to them, how do you communicate that to consumers to get them to really understand that?
Yeah, I think, so far our PHEV strategy has been pretty niche. So I think when we start ramping up the volumes on PHEV, say in RAV4 and other products, I think our marketing teams will then have the critical mass to actually invest and start doing some unique marketing. I mean, when you're selling 475,000 RAV4s and 20,000 of them are PHEVs, what are you going to tell people about how great a hybrid is? And so as that dynamic changes, and it becomes more strategically important. And frankly, the PHEVs are getting a lot better. I mean, I had the first Prius PHEV. The lease payment was so low.
It was not great.
I think it was 12 miles of EV.
It was 11, and even the EPA rating is 11, and even then, the way it was set up, you didn't have much electrical power in there, so you really you'd have to have basically just barely touch the accelerator to actually keep it in EV mode.
Yeah. So, from then until now, 50 miles, and of course the hybrid, or of course the EV mode power is never going to be rocket ship, because you have to combine then later the hybrid power with the EV power. So you want to manage those two lanes. The EV power is just meant to be acceptable. And then when you combine the two,
decent for around town commuting.
Yeah. Then you get 320 horsepower and let's go have fun. So there's more to talk about with the new PHEVs that we are introducing. So I think the marketing teams are going to take those product advantages and be playing them out. So, and by the way, you said something I wanted to address just briefly. You said there's so much uncertainty in the automotive industry, tariffs and regulations. Yes, look, you're right. But in my world, there's always uncertainty. I mean, honestly, if you looked 5 years ago to today, I would say there's a lot more uncertainty 5 years ago than there is today. And it might sound crazy to you, but what do we know today? Are regulations getting stricter or being relaxed?
Yes.
They're going to be relaxed. I mean, there's no way Trump is going to say, what, that EV mandate thing, I've given this a second thought, and I think we should have an EV mandate. I'm going to speed it up. It ain't going to happen. So regulations are probably going to be going down. What happens after Trump? Don't know. And tariffs are going up. To what extent these things move, who knows? We can manage these. There's ways, there's levers, there's things to do in that environment. 5 years ago, we were told that we had to plan a product portfolio to be compliant with federal and state law that was 50, 60, 70% EV, when we knew customers wouldn't buy those cars. Like, the company doesn't exist. The automotive industry does not exist if the only option you give a customer is a BEV. Your 16 million unit SAR is now 3-4 million units. So that's the uncertainty we had 5 years ago. And we were the only people in the industry that said, hey, time out. I know this is all, rainbows and happy babies and clean water, but if customers don't support it, it's not going to happen. But everybody else was like, oh, we're going to be all EV by 27. No, we're going to be 25. They're like competing with each other on who can be the quickest to be 100% EV. And the government's like, well, yeah, look at this. Everybody's so excited. We're going to just raise the... That was more uncertainty than there is today. Because now we know that's insane. 5 years ago, the industry didn't know they were insane. Now looking back, some of us knew those projections were insane. You can quote that.
I was always skeptical of those claims.
We were too.
Yeah. Just with what you just said, prior to us arriving here in Plano this week, last week, you announced 3 new or significantly, or actually 4 new and significantly updated EVs.
Yeah.
Across the Toyota and Lexus lineup.
Yeah.
So
5
just
CHR, BZ Woodland, BZ, RZ, and ES.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot the ES. Yeah,
babies.
Yeah. So, even though you're, moving the main lineup towards predominantly hybrid, you're not. It's not like you're not doing EVs too. Right. Yeah. So, can we talk a little bit? Kind of what do you see as the strategy for EVs at Toyota?
Yeah. EVs are an important part of the U.S. industry. It has clearly established itself as a big segment. I mean, if 8% of the industry is 1.2, 1.3 million vehicles, I mean, I don't care what it is that's selling 1.2, 1.3 million vehicles. We don't want to give up our fair share.
It's more than the number of minivans that get sold.
I mean, minivans are 150. I mean, it's yeah. So, or 200,000, whatever. So yeah. So it's an important part of the industry. Is it going to be over the next 5 or 10 years? Is it growing or is it shrinking? It's growing. We can debate how much it's going to grow. We could debate how long. I think probably 15% by 2030 is somewhat reasonable. There'll be continued efforts in infrastructure. There'll be better technology coming out from auto manufacturers that through engineering advances fixes customers' issues. It doesn't charge fast enough. It doesn't have enough range, right? We're fixing those things. So I think and our studies show that people that say, I want to buy an EV when they go into the shopping world, they don't get deterred very often. They normally end up buying an EV. And then people that own an EV, when they trade it in, we now have 10 years of EV trade-ins, right? UIO. When they get a new vehicle, like 70 or 80% of the time, it's another EV. So there's tremendous loyalty to EV powertrain once you're in it. The bottom line is we were not as competitive as we should have been with our BZ and our RZ. And it was ultra competitive. Time will show on durability and obviously fit and finish and driving dynamics and QDR, guest relations, all that stuff's great. But BEV stuff, like how fast is a charge and what's my range and technology and the fun to drive speed, we were behind the competition. So I think what you're seeing us do now is recognize the fact that we are underperforming in the EV space. We have great performance in ICE, in hybrid, in PHEV, and we don't have great performance in EV. Even though I saw a study that showed Toyota was the number one brand that if people were going to buy an EV, they would want to buy it from Toyota. We have a good reputation for quality and hybrids and stuff, but we didn't have a product that was competitive enough to meet their needs. We met this many customers' needs, but we need to meet this many customers' needs. So this is a big step for these products because we're going to grow our volume in EVs and be more competitive, but we're going to do it through product power. We're not going to do it through building in and shutting them down our dealers' throats and giving them $20,000 of incentive money. We want to build great cars that are great for customers that want EVs. And when we can increase our ranges by 25% plus and increase our charging time by 50% and increase our horsepower by 50%, now we got a bunch of vehicles in that give or take 300-mile range that all of our studies have said that's the magic number. Everybody wants more. Great. Yeah, I got it. But for normal use, the average EV buyer, they're perfectly fine with something around 300 miles. So we feel we're competitive and it's an important segment. And now is our chance to get customers back. We've lost a bunch of customers to EVs, a Tesla, we want to get those customers back. And so that's part of it. That's big picture, what we're doing. We want to be competitive in all these powertrains, and we really need to level up BEV in order to do that.
All right, time for about one more.
I know, because we'll have about 1 o'clock that I'm supposed to run to. Or you're running.
I would wait. You can be. I think they were going to bring Mike in here.
Bring Mike in here.
Oh, okay. Be sure.
A little bit of buffer. So yeah.
Okay, I was like, Mike's going to be like.
No, he's good.
And keep Mike waiting. It's okay.
First time.
He's just out there texting anyway. So.
No,
Go ahead.
No, I think he's even answering questions that I've had, so I don't know about that. So.
All right. Well, any final thoughts? Do you want to share? You didn't ask you about?
No. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time, Cooper. Always good to talk to you.
Thank you.
And here,
awesome.
Do that.